Okay, what stories am I doing? Grand Theft Auto and the Call of Duty Championship. Daniel, how did you like the Super Bowl?
Um,
Who are you pulling
actually,
for?
it was kind of lame, and then the lights went out, and then it got really awesome. So in
This
a
is
way,
sort of like prom
it
night.
reminded me of prom night.
This is Epic Battle Cry Skirmish 180! You have to blow in it!
Hello and welcome to Epic Battle
Get it, Daniel.
Cry. This is the place where we cut through the crap to bring you the real deal in the gaming industry today. I'm your host, Tony Grice, and with me, as always, Brent Adams and Daniel Kaiser. Brent, how you doing this week, man?
What's up? My showman of slaughter! My teasers of torment!
God, did you lose it?
Art thou!
Wow, that's in a whole different octave.
Yeah, what happened?
Tony went to me first, so I always have to go up an octave when he goes to me first.
Oh,
Oh, that doesn't sound right at all.
You can tell the difference between when he goes to me first and when he goes to me second.
I don't go to you like let's this doesn't sound good the way you're putting it.
All right, so
when Tony goes
does
to
me
you first, you
first.
get higher.
That's right. He does me first and I get higher. Than when he does me second.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. DK, how you doing this week, man?
I'm doing great, man. The NFL's championship game was a success and a lot more entertaining than I thought. Beyonce was entertaining. The game itself was entertaining. The lights went out. That was entertaining. Slightly boring, but it was a fun time. As somebody who follows the NFL, I enjoyed it. I wish the Broncos and Giants played each other, but that didn't happen. But this was great because, you know what? Next year, this time, here in Colorado, Super Bowl is going to have a totally different meaning. So I don't care anymore. It's going to be awesome.
You and the entire population of the state.
All right, well we got quite a few interesting stories, so let's go ahead and run through the gauntlet.
Gauntlet!
All right, guys, we're here in the gauntlet, and the first bit of news is kind of a little bit out of left field. We got news today that Grand Theft Auto 5 has been pushed back a bit. Brent, what can you tell us about this story?
Yeah, this actually came down the pipe last week. Rockstar announced late in the week that Grand Theft Auto 5, the flagship franchise for Rockstar Games, has been pushed back from its spring 2013 release to a little bit more specific day of September 17th. 2013. Of course, the reason for the delay is the usual need time to polish, need time to make the game as good as everyone expects it to be, etc., etc. In the hands of lesser people, I would worry, but the fact is that Rockstar has yet to let me down with any of the GTA titles, and if they say that they need more time so that I'm a happy customer, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. What do you guys think?
Obviously, this now becomes one of the most highly anticipated games of E3, seeing what they're going to show there, if they're going to show anything at all, because, typically Rockstar does whatever the hell they want. Having it, having been a spring release, it would have come out right around then. Now we get to anticipate seeing some more media surrounding that big event. But more importantly, this led to a lot of speculation that Rockstar almost instantly wrote off as being nonsense. But a lot of people were saying that, the reason for the delay was that it was going to be a next-gen game, Grand Theft Auto 5, of course, and also talking about possible other reasons for the delay. But Rockstar really just saying, you know what, we just want to make the best game possible, and after evaluating the proposed launch schedule, it's best for us to push it back. I think of everyone in all of these cases, generally, once you get to the launch, it all ends up coming out in the wash. But September 17th is marked on a lot of people's calendars, and Rockstar will honor this date. You can pretty much guarantee that this will be the last delay for the title. So, it should be pretty interesting to see how they handle media rollout moving forward and what the anticipation level is like when we, get towards September.
Yeah, I sort of agree with you, Brent. Like, if there's any other company, I might be a little more concerned or like kind of a little more wondering what it is. I think that they, Rockstar is kind of one of those companies that's like, yeah, we're not going to put it out till it's ready. And, I guess they were kind of getting closer to that launch window and maybe realizing that they had a little bit more work they wanted to do on it. So the
It
only
needs more hookers.
yeah more,
But what doesn't?
new compression algorithms allowed us to add in more hookers this time around.
More hooker blood. It's got everything you wanted and more.
All right, well, so we've got a little bit of time to wait for that, but something we have even more time to wait for is The Witcher 3.
Yeah!
And we got a little bit of a look into what we can expect. DK, can you run down what we found out this week?
All right, so this is huge. CD Projekt Red came out and announced just recently that The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt is heading to PCs and what they were referring to as, quote, high-end platforms, probably next-gen consoles, at some point in 2014. What we also learn is that this game will conclude not only the Witcher series at the hands of CD Projekt Red, but the story of Geralt, who's the lead character, and this is their last Witcher game, basically. And it's going to be a big one. They are saying that this is going to be probably the largest RPG of the generation that we're used to, larger than any other in modern RPG history, is what they're saying. It'll rival Skyrim, if not surpass Skyrim in terms of scope, and that they're saying that the world is going to be 30 times larger than what we saw in The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings, and that, they gave some tidbits about the gameplay. There'll be things such as, sailing misty waters and tracking down dangerous beasts for money, or galloping through war-ravaged lands as Geralt. They gave a few hints as to what we can expect. There was a tiny teaser trailer, didn't show any gameplay or whatever. But, like I said, the last Witcher game, it's going to be huge. It's utilizing the new Red Engine 3, which they did detail as being, this amazing RPG engine for nonlinear storytelling and open world environments. And that big word right there, open world. The game is going to be open world. So what do you guys think of all the Witcher 3 news, and are you excited for the project? Did you play any of the previous games as well?
It's interesting you say that, because I actually am very, very excited for this, because basically dress rehearsal for Cyberpunk 2077, using the same engine, also open world RPG. And I've heard so much buzz about the first two Witcher games that as soon as I heard this announcement, I said, okay, I've got until 2014 to play The Witcher 1 and 2 and get ready for this, because it really, really does sound pretty exciting. And some accent out there must have been reading my mind, because one of our listeners and a member over at Epic Battle Axe, Berserkerin, actually gifted me a copy of The Witcher 2 today on Steam.
No way!
And
How
so
cool!
That's awesome.
I wanted to give him a shout out and a very sincere thanks for that. I really, really appreciate it. The Witcher is one of those series that I haven't gotten to, but not for any disinterest, but just because I haven't gotten around to it yet. And it's one of those things.
It's a W. You've been working through all the other letters of the alphabet. And
that's exactly
really
right. My
near the end.
OCD just won't let me go about it any other way. But my point is this: I am very excited for The Witcher 3. It sounds really, really cool. I'm very, very interested to see the technology that the Red Engine 3 employs being used in The Witcher 3, because, as I said, that is obviously going to be the same engine that Cyberpunk 2077 is based off of. So I like open world games. I like role playing games for the most part, especially this game, which is kind of an action RPG in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm really anxious to kind of get immersed in the
awesome
mythology and everything of The Witcher. So I'm very excited about this announcement. Plus,
about you,
also, the artwork they show off for the game I guess is from Game Informer.
Yeah.
Longboats, Viking longboats. So they pretty much they had me at longboats.
It does look awesome too, and I love this. Is like my favorite time. I've been waiting for this for years and years is when we get new consoles coming out, because new consoles really do seem to kind of push the development envelope. People are starting to bring out new engines for new games, things like that. So this is the first look into what maybe some of the next gen consoles might be able to push. And of course, the PC can always change, but it's, in a way, I really do think the consoles kind of dictate just how far they want to go,
right?
Because they don't ever want to do anything that's like only possible on PC. They always, I feel like, hold it back just a tiny bit, because the consoles may not be able to keep up. But now, where we've got them coming down the pipe shape. It looks pretty awesome.
And to that point, just real fast to close out this story, Adam Badowski from CD Projekt Red had a really interesting quote saying that, people are asking whether or not this is really going to be the last Witcher game. And he said, yes, it is. Why? Because we believe that we should end the series on a high note. Technology has progressed to where we can finally tell the story that we want with the visuals we want in the world that we imagine. And this will be the ultimate fantasy RPG experience. And while we're hardly out of stories to tell, we believe it's time for us to look to new worlds and new horizons to keep pushing the boundaries of what we can create, which I think is just an awesome, that's what you want a developer to say. You know what I'm saying? So I thought that was really interesting.
We're going to milk this until the cows run dry.
Right. No, they're like, hey, this is going to allow us, the Red Engine 3 and the new tech, it's going to allow us to do what we've always wanted to do with The Witcher, and then we can move on. I think that's pretty awesome. So
yeah, it's a healthy attitude.
Absolutely.
Very cool, very cool. Well, I know at least a few people that might start their own next generation console gaming company, and that's the people that might win this year's Activision $1 million Call of Duty Championship.
Jesus.
Brent, what's Xbox getting together to do this year?
Get your triggers finger ready, folks, as I quote from the article on GT Side Mission from one Daniel Kaiser, because the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 tournament is going down this April in Hollywood, and there is $1 million on the table for the team of 4 with the most kill skills to take away. This is going to be running from April 5th through the 7th in Hollywood, California. As I said, the Call of Duty Championship will be presented by Xbox in partnership with Major League Gaming and the Electronic Sports League. They're going to bring together 32 of the world's best multiplayer teams, and they're going to go head-to-head in Call of Duty Black Ops 2 on 360. It's going to be live streamed everywhere. I guarantee you'll be watching this on 360, and it will be way better than the presidential debates. And somebody's walking away with $1 million at the end of all this. Yeah. So this is definitely going to be a pretty big deal. I mean, as we've talked about on the show before, it's not as though esports don't exist in the U.S.,
right?
But they don't get a lot of heavy promotion and play. And certainly with Microsoft and the Xbox name invested in this, putting on this competition, this is going to be probably a pretty widespread deal, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we talked about League of Legends not too long ago as, ushering in a new generation of esports and relevance for competitive gaming in this arena. But, I think a game like Call of Duty is the right game in terms of the scope of it, the reach of it, the marketability of it, to generate interest. There's more people that play something. Well, actually, there's tons of people that play League of Legends, but I'm talking about being a mainstream, like people will probably understand a little bit more on the mainstream level what's going on in a Call of Duty championship. But I got the sense when we were covering the announcement of Call of Duty Black Ops 2's multiplayer stuff and everything in Germany during Gamescom, it was very evident to me that something like this might come down the pipe, because this game was built from the ground up to support esports, and that was something that they were eyeing to do with this project, with the codcasting elements and everything else, and the new systems implemented into the game. This seemed like a part of the path that they had designed for this game from the word go. So it's interesting to see this tournament. Obviously it'll be a huge success for everybody involved in it, and somebody's going to walk away with a crap ton of money. But what I'm more interested to see is the reaction on the consumer level. If it's something that generates ratings, if it's something that generates a lot of interest online in terms of live streaming or learning about the stories of the teams from behind the scenes or the event itself. But this could be a make or break event for esports in America when you think about everything that's going into it and the brands involved. I mean, really can't get much bigger than Call of Duty, Microsoft, Activision pushing $1 million tournament. So if this doesn't work for esports in America, I'm not sure what will.
Yeah, it does look pretty cool. I mean, I think like you said, this is the type of game that might get the interest of the biggest chunk of the audience out in our country right now. So good choice to kind of go with it, and we'll see. Maybe this leads on to other things. The only downside of this entire competition being that the $1 million is only in Microsoft points.
Oh, so, damn it!
Yeah.
Could you imagine how funny that would be?
Yeah.
Funny for everybody but the poor sap who gets stuck with the Microsoft points.
Yeah.
Well, the poor sap in this last story is the developers of Medal of Honor. Yeah,
Nice segue.
they're not going to be working on too much anytime just real soon, or at least not any Medal of Honor games. DK, you want to kind of run us through what's happened to Medal of Honor this week?
So EA recently, in its third quarter financial call, announced that Medal of Honor Warfighter, last year's shooter that kind of polarized critics and didn't really catch on with consumers, will be the last entry for a little while in the storied Medal of Honor franchise, saying that the shooter is, quote, out of rotation, end quote, amongst the shooter offerings that EA is bringing to the table, which is pretty interesting. Peter Moore of EA said, quote, the game was solid, but the focus on combat authenticity did not resonate with consumers. Critics were polarized and gave the game a score which were frankly lower than it deserved. This one is behind us now. We're taking Medal of Honor out of the rotation and have a plan to bring year-over-year continuity to our shooter offering. So we know that they have different IPs, obviously Battlefield and what else have they got there? Army of Two and a couple of other franchises, Battlefield Bad Company, or the Bad Company brand. So it'll be interesting to see, but I think the more interesting story here is that even a storied franchise like Medal of Honor is not untouchable in this era of high pressure game releases where you've gotta be making bucks in order to stay in biz. So what did you guys think about this story, and when in fact do you think we'll see Medal of Honor make a return?
I think it'll probably take some time away, and it'll take somebody, whether that's Danger Close Studios or somebody else, coming up with a fresh take on it. One of the things that they mentioned was this quote from Peter Moore saying that Warfighter was a solid game, but the focus on combat authenticity did not resonate with consumers. Mm-hmm. And I personally, I haven't played Warfighter yet, but I played the first Medal of Honor that Danger Close did, and I thought it was a pretty good game. As I've said, I mean, it was a brief game, but it was fun. It had good variation in gameplay. It was nicely paced, and I'm talking about the single player campaign, just to be clear.
Right.
That part of it was a fun experience, but it was not an experience that really stayed with me. Not that Modern Warfare 3 or Battlefield 3 stayed with me any more than that. It's just not my genre in particular. Yep. But I think that Danger Close was doing something that they were relatively passionate about. But at the end of the day, I think that it didn't really grab people. And I can't help but wonder if the reason is because they weren't doing enough to distinguish themselves from the Battlefield 3 or the Modern Warfare franchises. Mm-hmm. So I think that's ultimately what it's going to take for this series to come back. I think it's going to take the Medal of Honor brand sort of finding its niche and its unique identity in the multiplayer first-person shooter space. And when they can find something that is sort of unique to them that they can do that nobody else is doing, I think that maybe that's when they'll come back, and hopefully they'll do something really interesting.
Yeah, and I think it is kind of interesting too, just to think that, I mean, this series, although it's had like a really long and I guess you could say illustrious, it's well known.
Sure.
Honestly, really, was only rebooted 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I guess now. When they brought out the previous game, just entitled Medal of Honor. The series kind of before that was had a little bit different feel. Of course, I think the vast majority of it was set in World War II, and I guess maybe some of the conflicts afterwards. But I don't know. I sort of feel like I feel like they wanted to bring it back and get a lot of attention for that franchise. I don't necessarily know that it's there. Like, it's kind of, I really think they were hoping to get sort of the popularity of like Call of Duty, which has been around almost as long, actually not quite as long, but almost as long, and has got a lot of the just owns the shooter space almost of these days.
Sure.
I think they were kind of hoping maybe to get on people that knew that. Sadly, though, the people that were big fans of those games back in the day, that was years and years ago. So I do think it's going to be quite a while before we'll see another Medal of Honor, and I think whenever we do, it's probably going to be probably a fairly different game. I do like, though, I think these last two especially have sort of focused on having more of a single player kind of focus versus like sort of like going to their Battlefield series where you sort of have that's solely multiplayer focus. So I kind of applaud them that they've been trying to do that and then work in a very solid multiplayer, but just, I don't know, just didn't resonate.
Yeah, and I would just say that it's evident that at this point, if they're going to be skipping soon, that the next Medal of Honor game is going to be a next-gen game. So it should be interesting to see what they do in that realm. But also, it speaks to the point that in this genre, which is so crowded and people are just always trying to knock it out of the park, it's just, it's really hard for casual consumers to have any differentiating factors that are going to be, they're not sitting there really, trying to decide which game they're going to get one over the other by just simply looking at them or doing a little bit of research. The bottom line is they get what their friends get. And when it's something snowballs like a Call of Duty, it reaches that level for better or for worse. But it does mean that, maybe you can't have that big of a piece of pie, but maybe you can carve out something that would be good, have it be relevant to the production budget, and create something utilizing a once very for lack of a better term, honored brand in gaming, and create something that's special and unique on next gen consoles that I hope that they do, because back in the day this was probably one of the better shooter franchises. It'd be good to see it return to form.
Yeah, so unfortunately with their recent performance, they aren't going to get any medals, but at least they're getting a free copy of Call of Duty out of this thing. All right, guys, well, we're in the main topic this week, and we're going to talk a little bit about a small little event Sony is going to be doing here in a couple weeks. And that is the announcement of something really big. So they're talking about the future of PlayStation. I believe it's February 20th. Yep. DK, what do we think that they are going to drop on us? Like, what's all the speculation about?
Wow. So recently, Sony put up an ominous and somewhat intriguing post on its PlayStation blog that said, "See the future of PlayStation." Basically, February 20th at 6 p.m. Eastern, we know that an event is taking place in New York.
It's the Move 2. We're getting the updated Move.
I knew it.
Yes, absolutely. We know that an event is going down from Sony that will unveil their future plans for the PlayStation. It's going to be a big event. We don't know specifically what they're going to show off, but that's the point of this conversation, is to talk about what they need to do and what they do not need to do. All we know right now, we got the teaser, which is basically just the logos, the iconic face buttons of the PlayStation controller floating around in fancy 3D graphics, and then boom, check us out on February 20th. So with that in mind, I thought it would be really fun for us to kind of discuss leading up to this event what we're expecting. So, I think obviously not knowing what they're going to be talking about and to what level limits our conversation a little bit, but I think that we should feel free to speculate on what they should and shouldn't do. So, Brent, why don't you kick us off? I mean, I think out of the bunch here, you're probably the biggest Sony fan with your affinity for franchises like Uncharted and God of War and stuff like that. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you're expecting from Sony come February 20th?
I think probably the biggest thing that I want from Sony is a relatively brief release window. I think that announcing ahead of Microsoft is great. I think releasing ahead of Microsoft would be even better for Sony. I don't think that anybody would deny that the head start the Xbox 360 got, it created a lead that Sony was never able to close. And that is also acknowledging the fact that Sony made some mistakes with the PlayStation 3, certainly in pricing, and they did, regain some of that ground, but they were never really able to catch Microsoft. And so I think being first out the door this time would be a smart move for them. I think having a console that is... I think that having a console in terms of technology that is robust, powerful, and accessible will make it attractive for developers, and hopefully it will give them the ability, assuming that they've had the hardware finalized for some time now, it'll give them the ability to hopefully show off not some target render trailers and things like that, but to show off some, and not just tech demos of fucking rubber ducks floating in bathtubs. Yeah. But to show off some real like in-game kinds of things that will hopefully impress people with what they're able to accomplish. I think that all of those things would be great, But the thing that's going to sell this console are going to be games. And the reason that I have been a fan of the PlayStation for all of these years, and why I own a PlayStation 2 and not an Xbox, and why I owned a PlayStation 3 before I owned an Xbox 360, is because of the first-party franchises that Sony has cultivated. Things like God of War, things like Uncharted. The GTA series early on, obviously that's cross-platform now, so it's not so much a concern. But even smaller titles like Sly Cooper, which, I'm desperately trying to get through this goddamn show with you guys so I can go buy Sly Cooper. And Killzone to a lesser extent.
Sure.
When I think about the kinds of games that I play on my PlayStation versus my 360, on PlayStation, I tend to play first-party games. I tend to play third-party games on my 360. Now that I've really started to become more of a PC gamer over the course of last year, I question how badly I need a next-gen 360, since so many of the titles that I play on my 360 I now play on my PC. But
Interesting.
I do feel like I'm going to need a PlayStation 3 a new, whatever the next gen PlayStation is. Yeah. I do feel like I'm going to need
PlayStation 4, I think is what the name.
The groundbreaking name.
Whatever that console is, I do sort of feel a need to have that console if they are going to continue delivering those first-party franchises that I love so much.
I would 100% agree with everything you just said. I tell you, I take that back. There's one point that you made that I actually don't think...
Couldn't just say it, but...
Yeah, I try to build you up, then take you down.
That's right.
Actually, the first point that you made, I actually kind of disagree with. Not in the sense that it is correct. I just don't think that this time around it's going to matter. And that's the release window. We basically know. I mean, everybody is pretty much in agreement that we're going to see both these consoles at the end of this year.
Right.
To me, releasing... I mean, hell, even if they release 2 months before them, which I don't think it'll be that far apart. I think if anything, they'll be releasing within probably a month or so of each other. Yeah. I don't think that's kind of any kind of window that's going to get them any sort of leg up on them. The Xbox 360 had a full year of selling time ahead of the PS3, and that is what got its foothold in the market. This time around, I don't think the release window matters in terms of that. I'll be interested to see at this. I hope they announce kind of a release window, just so we sort of know what to expect. Is it going to come early November? Is it going to not come maybe till closer to Christmas time? Who knows exactly when it'll drop. I do think that they need to show games, although I don't necessarily think at this announcement, I don't necessarily think we're going to see that too much. I think what we'll probably see is a few tech demos, probably some rubber duckies, maybe in an ocean this time to show.
Yeah, of course.
To show
progress.
It's 30 times bigger a world. Yeah. I think we'll see some tech demos of some of their properties, but they probably won't be from like a game. I don't think. I think we may see some really not like real early stuff, but just some real basic stuff to kind of whet our appetite for E3, because I do sort of feel like E3 is when they'll really drop the big bombs, because I think that's I think they're sort of hoping that this gets them a little bit of a interest level bump prior to Microsoft announcing whatever they'll announce, probably before E3, and then at E3 we kind of will see all of the story. I tell you, one of the other things I do sort of hope that they announce at this event, because I actually do think this would be a perfect event to do it at, would actually be a price drop for the Vita. I know, everybody's going to be more interested in the PlayStation 4, but I think this is a perfect time to announce like maybe a fairly significant price drop for that, prior to E3, where they, hopefully show off some really killer titles. We just saw footage this last week of the new Killzone game coming to it, which looks freaking phenomenal. Like, we're finally getting a couple of titles that actually are pushing that system, into the realm of what we sort of always kind of were hoping it would go, with like Call of Duty Declassified and things like that. So I'm sort of hoping for an announcement around the Vita, around a price drop, maybe even like a slight redesign, maybe a better battery or something like that. But the PS4, I think basically we just need to get kind of a rough idea of hardware. What is going to include, what size storage medium, what kind of plans they might have for PlayStation Plus integration, that sort of stuff. What do you think, DK?
Well, so for me, I'm going into this with what to expect and what not to expect, with the frame of reference that the game has already begun. We're talking about gaming, we're talking about the next generation, but what's interesting is the marketing game, the game of positioning, the game of give and take happening between Microsoft and Sony. Now that Nintendo has basically laid out its plans, we saw with Nintendo Direct what they're expected to do at E3. Now this cat and mouse game between Sony and Microsoft is beginning to unfold before our eyes, and that's a really compelling thing. How far will you go? Will you talk about new innovations with the console now, or are you saving some information for E3? Because you have to try to steal the headlines in this business. You have to try to generate the most hype and the most excitement when it gets time to pre-order one of these consoles or drive incentives through games and whatnot, like you guys are talking about. I don't expect anything to do with price at this event. This is probably just going to be, here's the hardware, here's what we're doing, and a few tech demos. What would be interesting is to see some real innovation in regards to the controller. Now, everyone's been talking about the hardware specs.
The Move 2, I'm telling you, it's good. It's going to be TOO. It's a whole new...
You Move 2, TOO. No, but obviously, that being said, the Move was, I think they would consider it to be a failure in the last generation. Everyone tried to jump onto the motion bandwagon. Microsoft has a little bit of success because of Kinect's flexibility to do things and augment experiences beyond the games themselves. And the Move really, I think, can be considered a letdown in this console generation. Do they leave it behind and not even think about progressing with motion control technology, or are they getting ready to introduce something different? We saw the Wii U has the new touchscreen interface, which is seeming to be what everybody's leaning towards. So this event to me is about really them solidifying the hardware specs, showing some tech demos to get us excited and generating buzz leading up to E3, and talking about the control and the interface and what we can expect and how that might be a differentiating factor in the two experiences that will be coming our way from Microsoft and Sony respectively. So it's going to be very fun to see how this unfolds. But with God of War Ascension coming out, it's kind of hard to think that they would have a new God of War game already lined up to talk about at an event like this. We haven't heard from Uncharted in a while, so that's a possibility. But games like Cyberpunk and The Witcher 3 and Watch Dogs, we know these games are in development, so possibly we might see extended tech demos or things dealing with those IPs that are third party coming to the PlayStation 3 at this event. So I hope it starts on time, because they screwed that up at E3. And beyond that, though, I hope that they really get this game of cat and mouse going with Microsoft, because it's going to be a fun few months. Let's face it.
I tell you I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brent.
I agree, and the other thing that I wanted to just hit on as well is the controller. I really, really do feel like it's due for a refresh, and the thing that I'm kind of curious to see, in the same way that the Move followed the motion control paradigm set down by Nintendo, I'm very interested to see if either Sony or Microsoft, for that matter, ends up following Nintendo into this touchscreen integrated into the controller, possibly even some sort of second screen experience. The way that the Wii U has done, I'm very, very interested to see if either Sony or Microsoft end up sort of chasing that puck again. And
well, with it not being such a successful thing for Nintendo, I mean, it's opening developers' minds and some doors of opportunity, but it's certainly not to knock it out of the park.
Well,
I think
and you got to think, they've already
agree.
got Surface enabled, things on the Xbox. Like, I think if anything, what we'll just see is, I'll tell you what, I think what we'll see is something similar to Nintendo in the sense that they came out with their, full screen, controller that has the screen on it. They still use the Wii remotes. You can use a classic controller. I think what they'll do is they'll basically embrace that whole, like, hey, lots of different controllers for whatever type of game you're playing. Like, here's the standard hardcore gamer controller, and it's probably going to be similar to a DualShock or an Xbox controller. They'll probably have, some sort of application with the Vita, I would think, to maybe like utilize some of the type of gameplay that you can.
What if they make the Vita the controller?
I mean, to be honest with you, I think that they'll definitely support that in this next console generation. I don't know that they'll talk about that here. Yeah. I tell you, the biggest thing that I think the biggest thing I think Sony can't do this time around is come off with real weak sauce. Like, if we see this event and we come away from it just sort of like, okay, all right, well, that was pretty cool. that could really hurt them, I think, because then people will not, like, they'll come, this is going to be the first sort of view they'll have of the PS4, and I really hope that they come in, and even if they don't show a lot, I hope what they do show is really impressive, whether it be through, some sort of really impressive AI kind of demonstration they show, or just some kind of computational type of demo, or some sort of feature that we just, I want to see. I'm so spoiled these days by, like, we saw stuff that would just catch us off guard, and we'd be like, oh, that's amazing, that's gonna be great. Right. And I want to see something like that again, where we'll really kind of sit there and be like, holy crap, I never even would have thought of that.
Yeah,
but I doubt those are gonna happen.
Just to get into speculation real quickly, in terms of, I think we're kind of talking about the things that we feel like we're likely to see. I want to talk about something that I don't necessarily feel that we're likely to see, but something I would desperately love for us to see.
Halo on PS4.
The Last Guardian would be great. But more to the point, I tell you what I would love, and this goes for Microsoft too. I would invite them to do the same thing. I would love to see for Sony to go out there and, like, very first thing, sort of, be like, PlayStation 4, PlayStation Orbis, whatever it's going to be. And it's like movies, television shows for rent, music downloads, picture sharing. And then it's just like, and like the screen blows up, and they say, fuck all that stuff. It's time to get back to what PlayStation was born to do, and that is play games. And this is going to be the hardcore gamers console. It's got, like this ridiculous amount of horsepower, all this, blah, 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 teraflops, graphic processing units, et cetera, et cetera. Just really, really dial it back and get back to basics and talk about how this is a gamer's console. This is a machine designed to play really great games, and take a step back from all the monetization models and the DLC and all the different ways that they can nickel and dime you and get your money, and just get to talking about this thing is about you buying a game, plugging it in, and having an incredible game experience. I don't expect them to do that, but I would love for Sony or Microsoft to engage me as a gamer with that kind of message.
Well, and the thing is, to accomplish that, they don't have to discount those other things, because let's face it, they're not gonna. They got so much invested in PSN and all their partnerships to make things like that fly. But they could have fun with saying, let's focus on the games. And as we always talk about on the show, something I always say is that it's all about how you present the message. It's all how you reach the specific demographic of consumer that you're trying to. And there'd be nothing wrong with them saying, hey, let's focus this event on the early adapters, the people who are like us, talking about an event like this, a couple of weeks before it actually happens, and catering to them. So that would be an intriguing move from a marketing perspective. And I second your opinion that I think it would be great.
I think too that you probably can expect a bigger focus than the previous launches on games, just because, to be honest with you, the previous launch, I think you could be at least somewhat honest and say that was the first time a lot of us got media hubs in our home. Yeah. That got these things that could watch movies, play games.
That concept is old now.
Yeah, that concept, though, is now everything does that. Right. So I don't necessarily think that they will put the focus on there. They'll still have it. They'll still have all that sort of stuff. And they may even tie into, like, some sort of new, way of using some of those things. Like, like a lot of people talk about social media integration into games. Now, the way they do it currently, where it's just like, hey, I got a trophy on this game. Like, that sort of stuff is exactly. But if there is some sort of thing where, like, maybe there's a camera on the front of the system, and it takes a picture of you as soon as you get, clocked in a fighting game or something like that. Like, and then post that up on your Twitter. I don't know, like something that actually would be kind of cool inventive. That could tie into it. Yeah, I think that could be cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, and backward compatibility with 360 games. I think that's going to happen.
Yes. I agree. It's almost guaranteed.
Play NES cartridges.
But you still have to blow in them.
Yes.
Tony loves to blow on them.
It's not good for the cartridges, by the way.
No,
it causes oxidation.
It's not good for the guys either.
All right, guys, we are coming up near the end of this week's Skirmish, but first we have our battle cries of the week, and my battle cry is going to go out to Star Wars Pinball, which there's been a bunch of pinball games based on the Star Wars franchise over the years. Some real world games and some virtual games, but this one has come from the guys at Zen Studios, the guys that have done like the Marvel universe. They've done they've done a bunch on their. They've actually done a bunch of just their own ideas and whatnot, and they're these kind of fanciful in the sense that they like create a what would look like sort of a real world table, but has like, of course, like visual effects and things like that and people flying around that, of course, couldn't happen on a real table. So really cool series, and I'm a huge pinball fan. And the thing I think is kind of interesting about this is apparently Zen Studios went to LucasArts when they were first trying to get this put together, and they were like, okay, we'd like to start off with like episodes 4, 5, and 6, the only movies worth paying attention to.
Yes.
And they were like, no, don't do that. So obviously this is when Lucas still owned the company, because the most obvious thing to do, he said don't do that. And they said no, go wild, think outside the box and think of different stuff. And the ideas they came up with, I guess, are pretty cool. They are going to be doing Empire Strikes Back as a theme, which is badass. They're going to be doing Boba Fett as a theme, which could does look pretty badass too, that table. And I believe the third one is based on the Clone Wars series. So
which is not so cool.
Yeah, Clone Wars actually, I got to be honest, over the years it started off really strong, then it kind of fell off. Now it's actually kind of coming back. Some of the last couple seasons I think have been better than they had been. So kind of interesting, but just all around cool to see some Star Wars themed tables coming down the pipe if you're a pinball fan. And if you're a pinball fan and haven't already checked this out, which I'd be really surprised, you definitely should check out some of their previous titles because they're also a really good deal. So so yeah, that comes out a little bit here in like a couple months, I think. Anyway, cool. All right. So DK, what's your battle cry this week?
My battle cry, TG in 3D, goes out to Junction Point Studios and specifically Warren Spector. Obviously, the fine folks at Junction Point got their studio shut down recently by Disney after failing to have their game Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two, perform well at retail. I mean, the game actually moved only about 300,000 copies on multiple platforms in the same time frame that the Wii exclusive original Disney Epic Mickey moved about 1.3 million. So it was up against some good competition during the holidays there, and it actually did not do very well at all. And as a result, Warren Spector and the gang at Junction Point saw their Austin-based studio get shut down by Disney. So my battle cry, though, goes out to Warren Spector and to them to hopefully land in new places, find new projects, to explore creativity. You were just talking about Star Wars and thinking outside of the box, and there's what we know and things that are so commonplace. And I think with what Epic Mickey did was allowed us to look at this classic franchise in a different way and open it up to open up not only the Disney franchise, but open up gaming mechanics and different things to a different audience. So I commend them for what they were able to accomplish with the Epic Mickey franchise. And, having spoken with Warren quite a few times at different events about creating games that are family friendly, but also push the boundaries of interactive entertainment and get people involved in the medium and showing an appreciation for the medium. The guy's truly passionate about that now at this stage in his career and in his life, and I hope to see his next project do the very same thing. So my battle cry goes out to everyone associated with this, even though that road is no more to be traveled and those doors are closed. I think that to look back on what they contributed to both the Disney Disney as a whole and also Mickey as a franchise and as an icon, it's pretty impressive to see that the Epic Mickey games did what they did. So there you go. That's my battle cry.
Yeah, sad news when a developer has to shut down, but it is part of the industry. So
it is.
All right, Brent, what's your battle cry this week?
My battle cry this week goes out to a game that truly embraces the old school in the same sense that Daniel and I were talking about a couple of weeks ago when you were off the show about old school game mechanics and how they have found a firm foothold in modern games. there is also that sort of secondary branch of just making old school fucking games.
Yeah.
And the one that I want to talk about today is a direct send up of classic NES platforming. It is called Mutant Mudds. I have been playing it this past week on iOS at the suggestion of Esteban Manriquez, my friend and one of our moderators on Epic Battle Axe. And I am here to tell you it is a fantastic fucking game. It could not be a greater love letter to that lost genre. It's available on the 3DS, on the PC, and on iOS, as I said. And I'm telling you, for a platforming game on iOS, it has got some of the most well-tuned controls. I very, very rarely ever feel like I'm playing a touchscreen device. I mean, it's really responsive, it's really accurate, and for the most part, not all the time, not 100% of the time, but for the most part, I really, really get lost in playing it and feel like I'm back, in front of the couch just playing with an NES pad. I want to try it out on the PC as well and see how it is with a physical controller. But
it's on the DS too, right?
It is on the it's on the 3DS.
3DS,
and you can get it through the Nintendo eShop there. But anyway, I just wanted to make this my battle cry because I think it's a phenomenal game. It's really inventive, and one of the things about it that I think is so fun is the fact that it's got this great 8-bit digital soundtrack, just like the old school Nintendo games would have had. It uses a lot of the same conventions and mechanics, but it does utilize modern technology, particularly depth and the ability to leap not just from the normal platforming sort of plane, but way off into the background and also way into the foreground. It really does some inventive kinds of things there. Very, very fun game. I've been playing it nonstop since I got it. So if you've got a 3DS, a PC, or an iOS device, I'd highly recommend that you check out Mutant Mudds. I think it's going to be well worth your time if you're into old school gaming.
But do you like it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I actually believe I played a demo for this. Is this the one where like it's a kid, like blonde-haired kid, and he jumps into the background? And okay,
That's
that actually was. It's a very cool mechanic. I'll have to. I haven't played the full game, so I'll definitely have to check that out.
Rectify that situation immediately.
Will do. All right. Well, so I have the member battle cry this week, and it comes from Rowan, who goes by I think Azure Cantabile. Yeah.
Sure.
Also,
and, sure. I love how Daniel always says "sure,"
Yeah, why
just
not?
as if like, just live with it.
Why not?
Rowan is also a moderator at Epic Battle Axe, for those who might not be aware.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he was talking a little bit about, last week we talked about the CG cutscenes, things like that, and their relationship to the actual game. Like, are they kind of misleading? Do they kind of give you the wrong impression of the game, or do they just kind of get you excited for the world that you're going to be playing in? And so his comment was, the issue is rarely that they set out to deceive consumers, and more that gamers simply look at these trailers and immediately jump to one of two conclusions. At the end of the day, though, the reason I would question the purpose of CG trailers is not that they're misleading, but that you can never realistically expect the average consumer to look at those trailers with the kind of analytical eye even a first-year film student could. The reaction of the average consumer will generally be either indifferent, based purely on that it's CG, or to take it too literally and judge the game harshly in hindsight.
Both fair
points. I think that's a very
points.
good point. Yeah.
Well, and how many times have we talked about on this show how important managing expectations is, and having realistic expectations of things. And
that's what I do every time I introduce Daniel to someone. I kind of set up, okay, look. The hair is not as impressive as it looks in photos.
It's more impressive in real life. Sorry.
Yes, it is, Daniel. Yes, it is. It's,
yeah, it sure is, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
But anyway,
how much I have
very
to
very good
wash
comment.
my-
I think he kind of hits the nail on the head. That's similar. I think kind of what I was saying is just that people either look at those and they kind of realize that what they are, that they are what they are.
Right.
They're just trying to get you excited about the world. That some elements of them are going to be true to the game, and some just aren't. They're meant to get you pumped up for it. The same way that like a CG cutscene in a game is to help you kind of further on the story, but it won't necessarily be indicative of exactly how you would play, going forward. So,
But
very
but
good
I mean that's
comment.
a good point. That I think he nailed it on the head there. That gamers are either going to be super critical once they see it and then go back and realize that some of that stuff isn't in the game, or that's obviously not what you're doing, or that they just don't know the difference. The average consumer doesn't really know the difference. They just look at it as, CG, and it is what it is. So, it's just a lot of good conversation surrounding that. I mean, I think a lot of people have an opinion on that, and especially in this console generation, we've seen because there used to be such a huge difference between CG and gameplay. Like when you look back on the PlayStation days, you'd have the CG cutscene and then you'd have the game, and they were night and day. But as the generations of consoles progressed, those two things became closer and closer. So the opportunity for it to be misleading was therefore presented. And now, as we go into the next generation of console, I suspect that what we see in gameplay is going to be pretty much what we're used to seeing in CG, so or damn close. So that line is blurring even more. So a lot of opinion on this topic, rather, expressed on epicbattleaxe.com. So thanks to everybody who contributed to the conversation.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this week's Skirmish. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this week, and please join us once again next week when we will be mercilessly cleaving the fat from the gaming stories of the day. For Daniel and for Brent, I'm your host, Tony Grice, and remember, cry havoc, and if anybody asks you who killed the lights in the football game, it wasn't Ray Lewis. He's got an alibi.
He didn't see nothing.
He has never killed any lights before.
Never killed
he was
anything.
in the car of the guy who killed the lights.
That's right. That was it.
Yeah.
But he himself didn't.
I thought it was ironic. I mean, it was a little bit of a change of pace because that time it was a bunch of rich people who got trapped in the Superdome.